What a man experiences when he sees your self-worth standing taller than your love for him is not gentle or poetic. It is a moment that shatters his ego in real time. He doesn't simply lose your warmth. He loses the power he assumed was permanent. This content was not built to comfort you or hand you empty validation. It exists to expose the precise mental sequence that activates the moment he understands he can no longer own you at any cost. Once that shift happens, nothing between you is ever the same. You are about to discover the 6 true psychological stages his mind moves through when your dignity takes the wheel. Starting from his first flash of confusion and ending at the complete reversal of power. If you leave before the final stage, you will miss the most critical and dangerous piece of all. That piece is what separates women who slide back into old patterns from women who never allow disrespect again. This is not just another recording. It is the truth you must absorb if you want to stop surrendering your soul in the name of love. The psychologist Jung said that no person truly meets another without first confronting their own inner shadow. That is precisely what unfolds here. Your self-respect compels him to face the parts of himself he has spent years avoiding. If this is landing for you, please subscribe and leave your thoughts below. When you receive this message at the right moment, it does not simply shift your mood. It rewires the internal structure through which you love. The first stage begins the instant he senses you are no longer up for negotiation. Pay close attention because a deeply held fantasy is about to collapse. A man does not register that he is losing you when you walk out the door. He registers it when he can no longer reach inside and move your emotions. It is not about a specific line you deliver or a rule you announce. It is a quiet repositioning at your core. He senses this movement long before he can name it. Consider a woman named Crisbel. She was profound, devoted and loyal. She never chased or begged, so people on the outside assumed she had strong dignity. Yet inside, she was constantly bargaining against her own values. She was inventing reasons for his absences and accepting small deceptions just to preserve the peace. Then one day, something shifted at the deepest level of her being. For years, she had mistaken patience for maturity. She had assumed yielding was equivalent to caring. Without realizing it, she had trained him to believe her limits were always movable. But then she stopped offering explanations. She didn't explode or disappear. She simply stopped betraying herself in the quiet moments. This invisible transformation reorders everything around it. When you return to your own core, your energy ceases to plead for his presence. He feels an immediate loss of entry to your soul. His first response is not fear, it is deep unease. He cannot identify why, but your stillness carries a different weight. Your limits no longer feel like a defense mechanism. They feel like an unshakable fact. This compels him to stop dismissing you and begin assessing where he actually stands. When a woman stops being negotiable, a man confronts a new reality. He does not yet believe he is losing her. He believes he is losing his comfortable seat of control. This transformation occurs when you make 3 internal shifts. You stop staying in spaces that make you feel physically contracted and small. You stop justifying yourself to someone unwilling to truly hear you. You begin making decisions that honor your own needs, regardless of his reaction. When you do this, you are not being cruel. You are being precise. Precision is deeply unsettling for someone who fed on your uncertainty. The man begins monitoring his words and his timing because he can no longer depend on your limitless flexibility. This is where genuine respect is born. Many women believe dignity means being distant or cold, but it is actually about being consistent. Crisbel did not grow cold, she grew whole. And that made him question where he belonged in her world. Now you are no longer simply responding to him. You are present as yourself. You are not pursuing. You are selecting. This eliminates his ability to keep you on standby for his convenience. Once your heart discovers it does not have to bleed to love, it cannot return to the former way. He recognizes he can no longer use your vulnerability as leverage, and that forces him to either rise or exit. Both outcomes emerge from you coming home to yourself. You do not have to leave the room to become non-negotiable. You only have to return to your own soul. When you do, the relationship is no longer held together by your effort alone. The second stage reveals why your dignity generates more genuine respect than all the love you ever offered. It is painful to absorb, but love without architecture simply becomes part of the background. What genuinely shifts a man's perspective is the strength you carry while still loving him. When you love without erasing yourself, he can no longer treat you as a default option. Giving more love does not manufacture more commitment. It frequently just creates a dull predictability. Dignity introduces an entirely different reality. Jung explained that the mind only respects what possesses clear definition and edges. When you have limits, he perceives a threshold he cannot cross without changing who he is. He begins comparing who you are now to the version of you that used to wait and hope indefinitely. Before, your love was guaranteed. Now his access to you is a privilege he must earn. He starts asking himself whether he is prepared to evolve or whether he will forfeit his place beside you. This is not a game or a tactic. Manipulation means changing for him. Dignity means changing for yourself. Your energy stops demanding attention because you are already supplying it to yourself. In counseling, men frequently describe feeling that their partner is somehow different, that things once felt easier. But easy is not love. By easy is simply access without any investment. This is where many women stumble. When he begins paying closer attention out of concern, the pull to revert to old behavior becomes overwhelming. But if dignity is used as a strategy, it collapses. It must be who you genuinely are. This is the moment the relationship exits fantasy and becomes a real deliberate choice. Your dignity does not guarantee he will remain, but it guarantees you will not disappear. And remarkably, that is precisely what creates the deepest impact. You are no longer the one being evaluated. He is the one who must determine if he can rise to your standard. This respect is not constructed on victimhood. It is built on remaining calm and unambiguous. When you stop acting from a place of injury, he loses his ability to play with you. Dignity leaves an impression that cannot be erased. You become a measure for him, not merely a memory. Some men rise from this moment and others retreat. Either way, you are no longer exchanging your soul to hold on to a man. The third stage arrives when his respect quietly transforms into fear, not the fear of a child. The fear of a grown person who suspects he may not be sufficient for you. He wants closeness but dreads exposing his inadequacies. He may send contradictory messages or run hot and cold. He is testing to confirm you are still available. But when he sees you are not pursuing him for answers, his anxiety deepens. He can no longer regulate his own emotional state by exploiting yours. He is standing before his actual self without any protective cover, and many men find that almost unbearable. Do not confuse his sudden intensity with real love. Sometimes it is simply a man attempting to recover lost control. Your role is to remain still. When you refuse to rush in and fill the quiet, he is forced to confront his own void. Your dignity exposes the truth beneath the relationship. Love rooted in respect seeks consistency. Love rooted in fear only seeks reassurance. By staying in your center, you separate the men who are not yet ready. He is now the one monitoring time and measuring his words carefully. He no longer holds your heart. He must work his way back to it. This independence is precisely what elevates your value in his perception. This is a dangerous window for you. When he appears lost or sorrowful, your instinct will be to return to your old role as his healer and anchor. If you do, the cycle restarts completely. If you hold steady, a new foundation begins to form. You are not being harsh, you are being reliable. That reliability forces him to take a definitive position. He will either step forward and become a better person, or he will quietly disappear. Dignity does not reduce its standard for anyone. You do not need to issue warnings. You only need to refuse to diminish yourself. This rescues you from years of misplaced devotion. It shows you clearly who can actually rise to stand beside you. The fourth stage is the moment he fully understands there is no path backward. The woman who used to contort herself to accommodate him no longer exists. He may experience a kind of grief, not for you specifically, but for the frictionless life he once enjoyed. You no longer absorb his weight for him. If he remains, he will regard you with authentic respect. He will begin taking ownership because he understands staying requires growth. You are no longer simply his refuge. You are a person he must genuinely honor. If he chooses to go, this ending will feel unlike any before it. There is no spectacle, no desperate pleading. You do not chase him asking why. This absence of collapse leaves a permanent mark on his inner world. He will carry the memory of the woman who refused to sell her soul for love. You may question whether you were too firm, but you were only being faithful to yourself. Love that only functions when you shrink is not genuine love. The fifth stage arrives when you make this self respect your lasting identity. You are no longer reacting to a rupture. You are living your actual life. By your yes carries real weight and your no is absolute. You require no proof of anything because you already understand who you are. This makes you magnetic in a way that cannot be manufactured. Those who cannot withstand your strength will exit without confrontation, and that is acceptable. You stop being swayed by hollow promises because your heart now recognizes the difference between authentic effort and performed interest. You have ceased fracturing yourself to satisfy others. You no longer require someone else to choose you in order to feel complete. You have already claimed yourself. The final stage is when your entire interior world reorganizes from the ground up. You are no longer operating from old fears or unhealed wounds. You now ask whether a relationship honors you, not whether you are adequate for it. Your body finally learns that love does not require suffering. You do not explain your limits because you simply inhabit them. A man never forgets a woman like this because she is complete. She did not betray herself in exchange for being loved. You have severed the cycle of repeating the same painful patterns. Your dignity is not a barrier to keep others out. It is a light that shows people exactly how to treat you. It removes the wrong people and welcomes those prepared for something real. You no longer look back with sorrow, but with understanding. You see why you were vulnerable before, and you know with certainty why you can never return there. You are no longer seeking to feel whole through a man. You are sharing your life from an already full place. This quality of love endures. You need not persuade anyone to stay. Your presence communicates everything. Always remember you are the standard that teaches others how to love with honesty. What happens when the reversal is complete and your dignity is no longer a response but your permanent state? This is the moment when the power shift becomes impossible to reverse. When a man realizes he cannot negotiate your presence, his mind moves from shock into a sustained reorganization of how he sees both you and himself. As you enter this next phase, you will observe him beginning to study your new normal. He is scanning for vulnerabilities. He anticipates that eventually you will revert to the version of you that once explained everything and waited endlessly. But when you do not, he collides with a psychological wall. That wall is where he must determine whether he is a man equipped to meet a high-value woman or someone who can only function when a woman is emotionally dependent on him. Your stillness and your choice to remain in your own center function as a mirror. For the first time, he is not examining your needs. He is examining his own absence of effort. This is where genuine change becomes possible. If he stays, it is because he has found an internal reason to grow. If he leaves, it is because he recognizes he cannot meet the cost of a woman who truly honors herself. In both outcomes, you emerge victorious because you are no longer subject to his inconsistency. You are inhabiting a state of inner order. This order prevents the old patterns from resurfacing. You no longer have to consciously practice being dignified. You simply are. That is the ultimate destination. A love that is shared by genuine choice, protected by clear limits, and sustained by mutual respect rather than emotional leverage. What happens when the reversal is complete and your self-worth is no longer armor, but your natural atmosphere? This is the moment the power shift becomes permanent and irreversible. When a man realizes he cannot argue you out of your value, his mind shifts from shock into a lasting reorganization of how he perceives both you and himself. As you move through this next phase, you will watch him begin to monitor your new way of existing. He seeks a point of weakness. He expects that given enough time you will slip back into the version of you who once justified every small thing and tolerated every inconsistency. But when you remain solid, he strikes a mental barrier. That barrier is where he must decide if he is the kind of man capable of standing beside a woman of genuine depth, or if he is a person who only feels stable when a woman is emotionally reliant on him. Your quiet presence and your refusal to leave your own center become a reflection he cannot escape. For the first time, he is not focused on your needs. He is compelled to face his own deficiency of effort. This is where the most honest transformation occurs. If he stays, it is because he has located a reason inside himself to mature. If he leaves, it is because he recognizes he is unable to pay the price of a woman who truly cherishes herself. In either case, You prevail because you are no longer at the mercy of his emotional inconsistency. You now live inside a state of internal structure. That structure is what prevents the old wounds from reopening. You no longer need to rehearse being strong. You simply are strong. This is the ultimate purpose of the entire journey. A love that is chosen freely, guarded by honest limits, and sustained by mutual respect rather than fear of solitude. The final transformation arrives when you recognize that your dignity did not simply change him. It transformed the very quality of the world you inhabit. You no longer attract those who want to weaponize your kindness. You become a person who radiates a composed authority that requires no volume to be felt. You have moved from hoping to be wanted to knowing you are worthy. When you arrive here, the past no longer holds any grip on you. You can look at the man who once made you feel insufficient and feel only a settled understanding of the lesson he carried. You have completed the curriculum of self-abandonment and stepped into the life of self-love. This is the closing of the old story and the beginning of a life where you are the sole author of your joy. When you arrive at this concluding stage, he will often attempt one final series of psychological assessments to determine whether your new dignity is genuine or merely a performance. He might use what could be called the memory trap, surfacing beautiful shared moments to see whether your emotions will soften enough to dissolve your limits. He may also attempt strategic vulnerability, displaying sudden intense sadness to pull you back into your familiar role as his emotional anchor. These are not always deliberate strategies, but they are the instinctive responses of a mind attempting to recapture lost dominance. If you remain grounded through these assessments, something uncommon arises within him. True awe. He comes to understand that you have stepped into a level of emotional maturity that he simply cannot redirect. At this point, the dynamic is no longer a contest of power. It becomes about the honest nature of the connection itself. If he carries the capacity for deep transformation, he will stop testing you and start genuinely honoring you. He will comprehend that being with you demands his best self every single day without exception. If he does not carry that capacity, your dignity will function as a natural boundary that prevents him from consuming any more of your precious time. Your internal foundation is now so firm that his choices no longer dictate your emotional state. You have stopped being a response to his behavior and have become a full presence within your own life. This is the moment of authentic liberation. You no longer monitor his screen activity to feel content, and you no longer dread his silence. Your happiness is now self-generated, rooted in the simple fact that you have stopped abandoning yourself. You have discovered that the most significant relationship you will ever experience is the one you hold with your own soul. This change is permanent because it rests on a transformed understanding of love itself. You now understand that love without respect is simply disguised suffering. You have exchanged the turbulent peaks and valleys of emotional chaos for the steady, quiet peace of self-love. When you move through the world from this foundation, you carry a calm elegance in every step. You do not debate your worth because you embody it completely. You have become a woman who is not simply hard to lose but impossible to forget, because you demonstrated what it looks like when a human being selects their own soul over a destructive attachment. From this point forward, you determine the tone. You decide who is deserving of your attention. You have transformed from the one who was waiting to be selected into the one who is doing the choosing. This is the conclusion of the psychological mechanism of loss and the opening of a journey toward love that is finally equal, transparent, and complete. The final recognition comes when you understand that your dignity is not a wall that blocks love from entering, but a filter that only admits the kind of love that is real. A man who encounters you in this state faces the definitive truth about his own character. If he elects to rise, he does so fully aware that he can never return to laziness or unreliability. He understands that your presence is something rare to be protected, not a service he is owed by default. If he elects to leave, he departs carrying the heavy awareness that he lost something irreplaceable because he lacked the depth to value it. Your life now enters a period of complete honesty. You no longer have reserves of energy for ambiguity, for maybe or we'll see. You expect directness because you practice it with yourself first. This clarity functions as a protective layer around your heart. When someone enters your space attempting to deploy the old tactics of guilt or mixed signals, Your entire system rejects them without effort. You do not battle them away. You simply no longer resonate with their frequency. This is the stage where you stop being the one who was wounded and become the one who was educated. The psychological transformation is now fully embedded within your nervous system. You have trained your mind that security originates from your own limits, not from another person's endorsement. This dissolves the persistent anxiety that defines so many relationships. You can remain warm and loving without remaining available for mistreatment. You have achieved the equilibrium of a tender heart paired with a resilient spine. This equilibrium is what makes you an unforgettable point of reference in his life and an undeniable power within your own. You now stand on ground that cannot be destabilized by heartbreak or a difficult day. You have found the center that Jung and other deep thinkers described as the true self. From this place, you do not merely survive love. You command it. You are writing a new story in which respect is the opening chapter and peace is the final word. You have returned to yourself, and in doing so, you have permanently altered your future. The final shift arrives when your dignity stops requiring effort and becomes your very atmosphere. At this stage, the man understands that your standards are not a catalogue of rules to comply with, but the very air he must be capable of breathing if he wants to remain near you. This is the ultimate psychological surrender for him. He grasps that he cannot negotiate with your soul. He sees that you are no longer frightened of the silence left by his absence, and that realization makes you more formidable than any ultimatum or argument he could ever present. This is the moment he confronts the truth that he is no longer the gravitational center of your world. You are. When you inhabit this state, your entire frequency shifts from seeking to selecting. You are no longer scanning for evidence that he loves you. You are evaluating whether he is worthy of the love you have cultivated for yourself. This shift is felt viscerally by any man in your orbit. It creates a natural pressure that demands honesty, reliability, and genuine regard. If he cannot sustain that pressure, he will feel a compelling need to withdraw. Not because you expelled him, but because his own lack of integrity becomes intolerable in the presence of your clarity. Your dignity becomes a mirror that accurately reflects his level of maturity or the absence of it. You have arrived at the place where your inner stillness holds more value than any romantic attachment. This is the true definition of being non-negotiable. It means there is no quantity of attention, no elaborate gesture. There arrives a stage that exists beyond strength itself. It carries no noise. It contains no theater. It is not powered by rage. It is composed authority. When your dignity becomes effortless, something unexpected stirs in his mind. He stops attempting to interpret you. He begins attempting to understand himself, because for the very first time he cannot point to your emotions as the source of his disorientation. He cannot label you as too sensitive. He cannot accuse you of overanalyzing. You are steady, and steadiness is deeply confronting. A man who once thrived on emotional volatility feels exposed and transparent in the presence of emotional solidity. He may not voice it, but internally he feels diminished. Not because you targeted him, but because your growth illuminates his stagnation by contrast. And this is where the concluding psychological shift fully unfolds. He begins replaying every moment in which he underestimated you. Every instance he predicted you would absorb more. Every time he assumed you would yield. He now perceives with perfect clarity that you were never weak. You were simply loving, and he mistook the two for the same thing. That recognition carries significant weight because it demands he face a painful reality. He did not lose you because you transformed. He lost you because he declined to. This is the precise moment when admiration replaces the need for control. If he remains within your world, you will notice a genuine shift. His voice softens, but not through manipulation, through humility. His actions become more intentional. He stops presenting a performance and begins offering genuine participation. He understands that entry into your life is no longer automatic. But here is something essential to hold. Not every man evolves through this stage. Some will attempt one concluding tactic: comparison. He may subtly reference other women. He may probe your jealousy. He may attempt to trigger a reaction simply to verify he still holds importance. But when you remain completely undisturbed, something inside him quietly breaks apart because he realizes you are not competing with anyone. You are choosing from an abundant place, and a woman who selects from abundance cannot be destabilized by a threat. This is the psychological conclusion of ego dominance. Your calm becomes more powerful than all of his maneuvers combined. And here is the point where the real transformation pivots away from him and becomes entirely about you. You begin to feel a distinctive lightness. You notice your body no longer seizes with tension when his name illuminates your screen. Your breathing remains even. Your sleep deepens. Your mind sharpens and clarifies. This is not accidental. Your nervous system has finally exited its long period of survival vigilance. For so long you loved from a posture of hyper-awareness, tracking his mood, interpreting his silence, bracing for emotional collision. Now your system has learned that safety is something you carry internally. That internal safety radiates outward into every dimension of your life. The people around you begin responding to you differently, not because you made any demands, but because your posture shifted, your gaze became steadier, your silence became more substantial. You are no longer accessible to emotional disorder, and disorder recognizes when it is being turned away. This is the moment when another layer of shadow integration completes itself. You stop idealizing potential. You stop believing that if you pour enough love into someone, they will eventually be transformed by it. You accept a difficult but deeply freeing truth. A person only genuinely grows when their discomfort exceeds their capacity for denial, and your dignity created that exact discomfort. Not through punishment, but through the quiet withdrawal of unlimited access. There is profound power in what you no longer permit. At this stage, if he attempts a genuine return, not with charm or performance but with real accountability, you will sense the difference without any analysis. There will be no adrenaline surge, no cinematic reunion, only calm and deliberate evaluation. You will ask yourself a single defining question. Does this align with the woman I have grown into? Not do I miss him, not does he love me, but does this honor who I have become? That question is the crown jewel of your entire transformation. Because now love is not something you stumble into without awareness. It is something you enter deliberately and consciously, and if he cannot answer your new standard through sustained and consistent action, you will step away without unraveling. That is the true victory. Not engineering his regret, not reclaiming him. When a woman arrives at this level, she becomes permanently unforgettable, not because she was theatrical, but because she was disciplined with her self-worth in every small moment. Even after years have passed, he will carry the memory of the moment your energy changed. The day your eyes stopped reaching for reassurance from his face. The moment your voice began carrying certainty instead of searching hope. You became the mirror he was unable to turn away from. And mirrors do not soften the truth. But here is the final reality that most people deliberately avoid discussing. This entire journey was never actually about dismantling his ego. It was about integrating your own shadow. The fragment of you that lived in fear of being left. The fragment that survived on fragments of affection. The fragment that confused emotional intensity with genuine intimacy. You did not simply transform how he sees you. You transformed how you see yourself, and that internal reorganization is not reversible. Now when love approaches your life, it meets something solid. It meets clarity. It meets a woman who does not negotiate away her own soul. This is what emotional sovereignty genuinely looks like. It is quiet, it is anchored, it is profoundly magnetic because it communicates one undeniable truth above everything else. You are no longer available for love that is only halfway real. At the very end of this transformation, something genuinely beautiful arrives. You stop experiencing relationships as contests to be won or lost. You stop calculating who carries the greater leverage. You arrive at the understanding that authentic love contains no hierarchy whatsoever. It is two complete individuals choosing one another freely, not completing each other out of emptiness. And if he has grown enough to rise and meet you, he will feel honored to stand beside you, not above you. If he has not, he will feel the growing distance as a persistent reminder of what genuine maturity demands from a person. Either way, you remain rooted in yourself. You have moved from attachment into alignment, from anxiety into authority, from pleading into firm limits. And that shift cannot be undone, because once a woman truly experiences the deep peace of honoring herself, she cannot return to the chaos of self-betrayal without feeling it instantly and completely. You have crossed the threshold that separates the old life from the new one. You are no longer the woman who waits to be chosen by someone else. You are the woman who thoughtfully determines who is deserving of remaining. And that is not arrogance wearing a crown. That is a full and complete awakening. This is the final stage, not of losing him but of completely reclaiming yourself. And once you have fully reclaimed yourself, there is no force alive that can take you away from,